Today we're going to be making a dish using this super firm tofu, and it's an Indian dish. It's going to be a tofu tikka masala, and it's a very simple dish that can come together quickly for you. If you're vegan, you're going to be using a vegan yogurt to marinate the tofu. I am using a coconut yogurt. Not sure if it's vegan or not, but that's fine. It still works. Use a coconut vegan yogurt. We're going to be using a half teaspoon of Kashmiri chili, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of garam masala, a teaspoon of garam masala, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and a half a teaspoon of ginger. All right, so the recipe will state all those amounts for you, so you don't have to worry because I misspoke there. But what we're going to do to start this off is we're going to marinate the tofu just for about 15 minutes or so. Doesn't need a long time, but we want to coat it very nicely with these ingredients. So let's go ahead and get that started. I'm going to use a bit bigger of a dish here so that I can make sure that all of my marinade gets in there. And let me just push that back a bit so you can see what we're doing. Let's go ahead and get our tofu in this dish so we can be sure that our marinade is going to cover everything. Let's get that tablespoon of yogurt in, the half teaspoon of ginger, the teaspoon of garam masala, the half teaspoon of garlic powder, and our half teaspoon of chili powder, Kashmiri chili. And what we want to do is we just want to mix that around a little bit. We will go ahead and use a spatula to do that so we don't break up the tofu. And then we're just going to set it in the fridge to marinate. Just move it around a little bit just so we can make sure that we're coating it. And if you feel like you want to add a little bit more yogurt, feel free. That's entirely up to you. I'm going to go ahead and just get this all mixed in so that my flavor is on that tofu, because we all know it's going to absorb those wonderful flavors. All right, we'll be back when we're ready to start working with it. While our tofu is marinating, we're going to get the rest of our ingredients together. This is going to call for 4 cloves of garlic, an entire onion, and about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of fresh ginger. We're going to be using whole tomatoes, spinach, a little olive oil to cook everything, and then we're going to be also using some fragrance, some cumin seed, some garam masala. We're going to be using, again, some turmeric, some Kashmir chili, and now some turmeric. So look at all these beautiful colors and flavors. It already smells wonderful, and I haven't even started to cook anything yet. So let's go ahead and get our garlic minced and our onion rough chopped, and then we'll go ahead and peel a little bit of ginger and mince that up as well, and we'll get those in a pan to start cooking. We'll show you that process in just a second. All right, we've got our garlic minced. Next up is rough cutting our onion and mince our ginger. Our onion is rough cut. We don't mind little bigger chunks of onion. We think it adds to it. A chef friend of mine taught me that the easiest way to peel ginger is with a spoon, and that makes perfect sense because of all the curves. And there's our ginger, also minced. Now we can go ahead and get these ingredients into a frying pan. So let's start with the onions and the ginger first. And let's get our flame on to about a medium high. And let's put in a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of olive oil. You could, if you're not making this vegan, you could use ghee. Ghee would make it taste good, but it certainly isn't vegan. So I'm trying to make this a vegan dish, so we're going to go ahead and we are going to use the olive oil. Now, in a moment, we'll test our pan to make sure it's hot, and then we'll drop in our onions and our ginger to start. All right, we know when our pan is hot when we drop a little water and we hear that sizzle. So let's go ahead and get those onions into the pan. My daughter says this is singing. The onions are singing to us. So we want to go ahead and get them right in. Let them sing away. And get them all in. And then next up is our ginger. And we'll do the garlic after that. Let's get our ginger in. Beautiful fragrances already, and we haven't even started. All right, we want to give this a little stir around. Don't want anything to burn or stick. If it seems like that's going to happen, we'll turn the heat down just a hair. That seems to be okay right now in the pan. Next up, we can go ahead and add in that garlic. I'm going to get all of that in there because that is a beautiful amount of garlic. And we don't want the garlic to burn, so you want to pay attention at this stage of the game. Keep moving that garlic around. As soon as you can start to smell that garlic is when we're going to add in our other ingredients. Let's get those cumin seeds in there. And now we want to get the rest of our other spices mixed in as well. I'm told by an Indian friend that they call this tadka or chunk, where they take and they put all the spices right in the pan and let the fragrance just come through and cook down a little bit. Don't worry that it's sticking because we're going to be getting our tomatoes in just a minute. Smells fantastic already. All right, let's get our tomatoes in that pan. And then see how none of it's stuck down there at the bottom? See how it's nice and clear? I want to kind of show you that. See? So no worries. We're going to let our tomatoes start to cook, and then we're going to pierce them as they go with just a little bit of that sharp knife that we were using, just so they don't explode on us. There we go. That'll help some of the liquid come out of them and help them to break down a little bit easier. We're going to let this cook by itself for about 10 minutes, let all those flavors infuse and come together. And then what we'll do is we'll start browning our tofu in another pan that we've set aside. So this is a 2-pan dish to make it come out the way we want it to. See how I'm breaking down the tomatoes just a little bit now and they're not squirting at me. Alright, let's just let this be for 10 minutes. While our sauce is cooking away, that's the gravy for our tikka masala right there. We'll have one more thing to do with that gravy, and that will be to add the spinach, and then we're going to put it through the food processor. Or maybe we'll put it through the food processor, put it back in the pan, add the spinach. I might like it that way better. So we'll see. I think that might be the better way to go here. So while that's going, we're going to go ahead and move over here. We're going to set our next pan onto a medium heat. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil. Again, if this was not vegan, you would go ahead and you would put in ghee. And once that gets warm, we're going to test that pan just like we did the other, and then we'll go ahead and drop our tofu in there and let our tofu start to brown. We are going to add just a little bit more chili powder to our tofu as it cooks to help the browning process. And then what we're going to be doing while that is browning is we're going to get this into the food processor. And so we need to let it cool just a minute or so. So we'll do that and get that all broken down. All right, that pan is plenty hot. Let's go ahead and get our tofu added in there. All right, we've got our tofu added in, and I use these little rubber spatulas because we know the tofu is a little delicate. So we're going to go ahead and let this start to cook a little bit. And then, as I said, we'll add maybe just a little bit more of the chili powder to make sure it browns evenly, but looks like it's got a good coating on it. So we'll just add this to taste. Now, let's go ahead and get our sauce. We've turned this off. Let's go ahead and get that into our food processor, and then we can just make sure that that sauce is all broken down nice and even. All right, let's give that a whirl. And let's just put it all in. Let's go ahead and add it right back into our pan while our tofu is cooking over there. Let's check on our tofu, see what that's looking like. Starting to brown. Look, that shows me that's starting to brown. That's good. It's a good sign. Just going to move it around a little bit, make sure it doesn't stick or anything. Continue to let that brown. Meanwhile, I've got my sauce back on. I'm going to give it a stir. Let these tomatoes start cooking down, breaking down just a little bit more. And then we'll add our spinach in. Now, if you want to hide the spinach in the sauce, you can. You could have put that in the food processor with it, but I like to cook it and have chunks of spinach in with the masala. To me, that's a little bit prettier. It's a little bit more texturally pleasing, but it's entirely up to you, whichever way you'd like to go. We'll be back in a minute when the tofu is ready to go in. Actually, we'll be back in a minute when the spinach is ready to go in, and then the tofu. While we're waiting, this is a good time to taste to see if we need to make any adjustments. So let's go ahead and give this a taste. It definitely needs salt. It's starting to brown. I'm going to add just a little bit more chili powder. Just to make sure I get a nice even coating. It tastes fantastic so far. And I think our sauce is ready for the spinach. So let's go ahead and put the spinach in here and let this wilt. And make this nice and healthy with a lot of spinach in it. Very pretty. All right, move our tofu around just a little bit more. Make sure that it doesn't burn. The reason we want to use super firm tofu is so that it doesn't just all fall apart. Even with that, some of it falls apart a little bit. That's okay. It'll still taste delicious in here. Now let's give this another little taste with a clean spoon. Coming together very nicely. Doesn't need any more salt. If you're somebody who likes heat, you could add more heat right now, but there's no need to if you're somebody who doesn't like a lot of heat. How would you add heat? Well, by using this Kashmiri chili powder. So we can put a little bit more in. All right. Let's add to that. All right. I would say that these are coming along nicely and actually pretty much done. So I'm going to go ahead and turn these off, and then we're going to mix them right into our sauce. If you wanted, you could serve these individually and then put the sauce over it. That would work too. We'll show you our final product here in just a minute. And here's our final dish. This is our tofu masala. It is delicious.